Why are these noises going on outside, and why aren't we allowed to open the windows at night? And my grandmother would say, well, the Woolyboogers are out there. And so when nighttime comes, you come in the house, and the Woolyboogers won't mess with you as long as you have that respect both ways.
This is the Cryptid Creature Show. I am Brian, and with me as always my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Brian, my friend, tonight we have a twofer coming on. We got two guests on the show tonight.
Oh, nice. I like the double whammies.
Yes, we do. First, we're going to bring on Jane. And Jane's had some experiences with some strangeness and some things she calls Woolyboogers around her homestead, and some other strange little things going on. I'm not sure what she talked about, little people or something like that.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
Get into that. And then we're going to bring Sydney on. And Sydney lives not too far away from us. She lives down in that Mississinawa Triangle.
That's right, yeah.
That we talked about, that our buddy Brandon's doing a documentary on. And
mystical area of Indiana
so she's got some Bigfoot activity going on down there, and other things. So we're going to bring her on after that. So to begin the show, are you ready to bring Jane on and see what she's experienced?
Yep, let's get her.
Jane, welcome to the show. We appreciate you being here so much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me, and I'd totally like to commend you guys on having a safe and non-judgmental platform for people to come and share their experiences.
Well, we appreciate that.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, very much so. We know you had a lot of things going on in your history, and we've talked a little bit prior to this, but why don't we just go ahead and just let you start taking in to tell us about your background and everything, and just go into it and take it from there, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'd like to just start by saying that my ancestors came from Scotland and Ireland, and they moved into the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia. So I was raised in the Appalachian folklore along with the Celtic and Gaelic that kind of had their influence as well. Along the lines, I didn't think about mentioning, but along the lines, one of my grandparents actually married a Cherokee lady. So that brought in the Native American part, it's been several years back, so it's been quite a while. But I did not realize how different we were until I moved away for college and was able to kind of get out and about in the world and realized that people really did think that a lot of the Appalachian folklore was just kind of crazy. And, and I didn't talk a lot about the superstitions and stuff like that, which I'm happy to definitely give you my take on everything after I kind of finish this one experience. So I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia area, and my grandparents raised me most of my life. My parents were very young. They weren't ready to be parents. And so they weren't really a part of my life, which was fine because my great grandparents were absolutely amazing people. They were some of the most hardworking people you'll ever meet. They had, I think it was like 13 or 14 kids. I mean, they had tons of kids. So it was always a lot of family. We lived in a little farmhouse, and there was plenty of woods, plenty of hollers. So there was a lot of wooded area there. And it kind of started out just growing up. I remember the little things like, knock on wood, but you don't knock in the house because something could be knocking back. And you don't whistle at night. You don't whistle in the house. You don't bring umbrellas in the house. If a bird flies in the house and it's a sparrow, that means somebody's going to die. If somebody passes, every mirror has to be covered. It's just those little things that I grew up with all this my whole life, and it never seemed odd to me. It was just the way we were. So we always played outside, and I played in the wooded areas, and I played in a little clearing across from the house. And I had a friend, William, and me and William would go out there and we would play, and we would play till the lights came on, till the street lights came on, and then it would be time to go in. But he never came into my grandparents' house, which I always thought was kind of weird, and it kind of hurt my feelings because, I'd play with him all day long, but when it came time, if I went for lunch, he's like, no, I'm gonna play. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'd go in, come out, and he'd still be there, and we'd play. So growing up, it was pretty normal. But then when nighttime would hit, I can remember the doors being locked, the windows being shut. The curtains were always drawn, and the shades were always down. Like, you did not look out the windows. And I remember getting in trouble one time for peeking out the window. You didn't do those things when we lived out in that area. So as I got older, we would hear things, and there would be questions, well, why are these noises going on outside, and why aren't we allowed to open the windows at night? And my grandmother would say, well, the Woolyboogers are out there. And I'm like, Woolyboogers, like what do you mean Woolyboogers? Like, and she would just explain to me, there are things out there that you don't mess with, and we have a healthy respect for these things. So during the daytime, if you're out in the woods and you're out playing and stuff like that, there's certain little rules, certain little things you don't do, and you respect their area. And so when nighttime comes, you come in the house. There's no reason for you to go outside, and the Woolyboogers won't mess with you as long as you have that respect both ways. So I grew up with that healthy respect of nature and the healthy respect of what I can't see is out there, but I know it's out there. But I'm trying to think, I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I can remember one night I heard something under the house, and I could hear like tapping. And I went to my grandmother and I was like, there's somebody under the house. And she's like, oh, it's just the little people. And I'm like, the little people? What are you talking about, the little people? And she's like, they live in the woods. They live in the caves and in the hollers and stuff. And sometimes they'll venture out. Sometimes they get under the house. Don't worry about it. Don't knock back. Don't mess with them. Don't look out the window. Just let it go. Just go to bed. Leave it alone. So I'm like, okay. So I go to bed. It's no big deal. The next morning, I'm asking her all these questions, and, she's explaining it, and she's very nonchalant when she's explaining it. She's not like worried or upset. She's just, they're out in the woods. They normally don't come this far, but when they do, we let it go. We don't mess with them. If you want to, we can make them some clothes. I'll teach you how to make them some clothes, and we'll leave them some treats or something under the house. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm all for that. So my grandmother taught me to sew anyway. So we would sit down, she'd show me how to make the clothes, and she'd put them in a little envelope, and then we'd slide them under the house, and then they'd be gone. And then later on, there'd be like trinkets, if that makes any sense, around the edge of the doorway. But I can remember hearing talking under the house, and I can remember as a little girl laying on the floor and having my ear against the floor and listening, and you couldn't make out any words, and I don't even know if there were any words, but you could hear faint talking back and forth. And I can remember hearing the scurrying, and I can remember the shadows. And I really don't talk much about it, and I haven't even thought about it until I was watching TV and I was skipping through, and this show popped up. I don't know if I can mention the show or not, but it popped up, and it said something about these little people, and it made it this terrifying thing. And I guess my experiences are a little different than other people, because I've never really had a negative experience with anything in the woods or anything in the Appalachian area, because I was raised with the knowledge that they are out there. They are a part of our world. And as long as we give them the respect that they deserve, then they will in turn give us a respect. So I played in the woods as a child, and I could feel things, or I could see things, and I would see things out of the corner of my eye. And, my grandmother was like, you're a kid, you really don't have anything to worry about. And I never really had a fear of anything. We lived in a haunted house. There was things in the house, and, things happened. Nothing scared me. And so growing up, I knew there were other worldly things, but it was not something that terrified me. It really didn't bother me. Now, on the other hand, people were what bothered me. So that really scared me. People scared me. And that was pretty much the main thing, was growing up with the Woolyboogers and stuff like that. As long as I had respect for them, they would leave us alone. And we never had any, issues with, anything invading our home. We never had any issues with anything destroying our animals or messing with the farm or anything. If you did see something, you didn't, if you heard something, no, you didn't, you just let it go. So that was just kind of my experience, I guess, as a child. And I feel kind of bad when I hear some people, they talk about their negative experiences, because I can't relate to that. And my heart goes out to them, because I never really had an issue with that. So that's just kind of a little bit about my experience. And there's been other experiences, and I'm happy to share them. But if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
I would just ask about the clothes that you guys were making. Is that right? You guys made some clothes for these? How big did you make? How big were these little people? I mean, were they like Barbie doll size clothes, or were they bigger than that, smaller than that? I mean, how did you know?
So I kind of equate it to the size of what would be the Fae. And I think that a lot of this comes from the Irish and the Scottish that they brought over. As far as the clothing would go, my grandmother would make dolls, and she would make clothing for dolls, and she quilted and all that other good stuff. So she would cut out something. It was a little bit bigger than a Barbie doll, but smaller than, I would say, like an 18-inch doll. So somewhere in the middle there. And they were very simple clothes. It was very cut out, two pieces, folded, or cut out one piece, folded over. It became one dress or one shirt, and then the pants. And it was very, very simplistic. So we would cut these out. She would have me sew them. We'd fold them. We put them in the little envelope, and she would put them, like I said, slide them under the house. And I can remember that they were only, I'm trying to think, maybe they were only there maybe a couple weeks, and then they were gone. I never heard anything under the house, because, as you get older, you realize that rodents are a thing, and that raccoons are a thing. And I have studied up so much about things, because growing up, I was like, could it be something else? But it wasn't. You actually hear the conversations. You can tell that there's different sounds coming from each little area. And so, like I said, they were only there a couple weeks, and then they were gone.
I mean, we've heard about little tiny creatures running around, pygmies, little miniature humans. There's videos of them out there. People seen them in like the South America and stuff like that. You talk about pygmies. You talk about back in the biblical days where there used to be giants. So who's to know how big there or small there could be little two-legged bipedal creatures, human beings, whatever you want to call them, running around. I mean, it could be very, really small to up to who knows how big. We talk about Bigfoot, right? So, as you guys call them, the Woolyboogers. Yeah, I've heard that before too. But yeah, sure. I mean, there's no doubt there could be so many different things living in the Appalachian Mountains, let alone anywhere. But the Appalachian Mountains are different than. There's so many caverns and cave systems in there, I think, more than not. I think I was telling you before we started recording that my parents are from West Virginia, in that area. And there's so many mines and deserted mines, for that matter, that are out there that just things could be living in that you just don't know, right? Can have been there for a long time, right? Absolutely.
And I believe wholeheartedly, and I've heard the theory before, that the little people lived in peace with the Native Americans. And when the Native Americans were sort of pushed off their land, that was the only medium there. So if you have the white man come in and these creatures or these little people are used to dealing with the natives, and then you have these other people come in, run the natives off, is that treaty broken? Does the white man know how to deal with these small creatures? And who's to say that they're not angry or that they just don't know how to react to it? Because like my family, they knew these things existed, and they taught us as kids, and they put in us and ingrained in us this healthy respect. You have a healthy respect for nature, and nature will have a healthy respect for you.
Yeah, I truly believe that too. And one thing about, the United States, so to speak, or whatever you call this continent, I mean, back in the day, I think that Native Americans were here and they got along with Bigfoot creatures and other things. And here comes, like you said, the white man wiping on everybody. And all these things reverted to the caves and the woods of America, right? And just didn't have anything to do with us. They see what we are capable of, what we're going to do to people. But I believe that. I think the Native Americans did live alongside little creatures, big creatures, and all that stuff. So, sure.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you do I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. Go ahead.
Okay. But I don't know if you guys have done much research when it comes to the Appalachian Mountains. And if you look back, it is the oldest, like way far older than anything else. And it predates everything in America.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, yeah. That's why I think that's why there's all this mystical stuff going on in the Appalachian Mountains.
Absolutely. And it wasn't until I got older that I started researching these things. And it wasn't till last year I actually had the time to sit down and listen to podcasts. And it was your podcast and another podcast. Those are the only two I listened to because I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense because of the things that I saw as a child and the stories that my grandparents had told us growing up. I didn't understand until I got older that these actually had names, like, what you would call Dog Man. Like we just called Woolyboogers, and Bigfoot was the hairy man, and you didn't acknowledge it. And as long as you didn't acknowledge it and you made sure that you didn't, do anything to kind of be aggressive towards it, then you didn't have any issues. Now you did have the ones that, and I don't know if these are any that you've ever heard of, because I mention these and some people think I'm absolutely out of my mind, but my grandmother would talk about Old Jumpin' Harry. So if you were to go outside at night and you were to leave your property in the ditches, Old Jumpin' Harry would be waiting for you, and he would jump out, he would take you, and you'd be gone.
So is that like a version of Bigfoot then?
I don't know. My grandmother would never tell me because I would ask her, who is this man? Do we know where he lives? And my grandmother's like, he doesn't live anywhere. He lives in the ditches. And we're like, as kids, we're like, ooh, like this crazy man's laying in the ditch, and she wouldn't tell us. So I don't know if it was just something to keep us, inside at night. But then there was also the tale of Rawhead and Bloody Bones. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that one.
What was that again?
Rawhead and Bloody Bones.
No, I've heard of that one. What was that one?
Oh, wow. Okay. See, I told you, these people think I'm crazy. I actually did a lot of research on this one, and this one dates back to Scotland and Ireland both. And there's a bit of a controversy on where it actually originated. So to keep us away from the barn, and I really think this was just to keep us away from the barn, she would tell us that that's where Rawhead and Bloody Bones live. And if you get caught in the barn at night, then you're obviously being naughty, and he will punish the naughty children. I think he's kind of like a Krampus.
Wow.
So if you're a bad kid, or if you do bad things, or if you're caught missing at night, this creature, Rawhead and Bloody Bones, will come and he will do immensely terrible things to you. Like, it's pretty vile.
That kind of sounds like a Wendigo to me. I know we're not supposed to use that word. Sorry.
Don't say
but that's what that sounds like. Rawhead and Bloody Bones.
It does sound like the Walking of the Skin or the Windy Boy. It absolutely does. Yeah, it absolutely does.
I'll cut me saying Wendigo out of this. I promise you that. Okay. I'm not going down that road.
But that was just another one of, we would try to imagine what this thing would look like too. Like, like at first I thought it was two creatures. Like, you had Rawhead and then you had Bloody Bones, but evidently he was Rawhead and Bloody Bones. So he's like this nasty creature. And like that one did kind of scare me. But like I said, I'm more or less picturing this bloody man. And as far as the old Jumpin' Harry, I pictured a man. And with the line of work I did years ago, I actually met a lot of very evil men. And still to this day, I will walk through the woods and walk through a haunted house. I don't care. It doesn't bother me a bit, but I don't want to be around people, because I've seen much more evil in people than I have in the woods.
Very interesting. Very interesting. That's cool too. I mean, when you say the hairy, what was it again?
The hairy man.
The hairy man. I mean, I'm thinking Bigfoot.
Oh yeah.
When you say raw bones, and I mean that could mean a lot, honestly. But I kind of thought about the Wendy when you said that. But what else have you experienced or heard of going on? I know you had some other things that you wanted to talk about, maybe.
Sure. So it wasn't until much later growing on that I found out why my friend William wouldn't come over to my grandparents' house. So I vividly remember playing with him every day. Like, we played all the time. And then we moved, and then I didn't see him anymore. Well, I had mentioned to my grandmother, well, how come William never came in? How come, why didn't he like you guys? And my grandmother was like, yeah, he was not real. And I was like, well, what do you mean he wasn't real? And they were like, that was your imaginary friend. And I'm like, no, he wasn't. I know I remember what he looked like. I could tell you what he was wearing. And she was like, honey, I don't think he was a real person as far as flesh and blood. And then it kind of dawned on me later on, it was not a real person, but maybe I'm thinking he was a ghost.
That's what it sounds like.
Because I was very small and I couldn't understand. Like, I would always have my grandmother, I would be like, set him a plate. I'm gonna see if he'll come over. Or he wouldn't come over, and he wasn't mean about it. He was just like, no, and he would play. But I did everything with him. I mean, I vividly remember it. And she was like, yeah. He wasn't real, honey. He was real to you, and you really did have these experiences, but he wasn't walking on the earth with us like you would think he was. And then it kind of dawned on me a little later that's probably what it was. So that was definitely a key memory for me. I think some of the other ones were, my grandmother was what people would have called, and I feel bad even saying the word because she was a very religious woman and she wouldn't have wanted me to say it, but I don't know if you've ever heard the term like granny women or granny witches or root people.
Not really.
No.
Witches, of course,
okay.
But not granny witches.
Yeah, it's root healers and root people and granny witches and granny people and granny women. They're all kind of the same. She could pull fire and pull warts. If you've ever heard of that.
Pull fire and pull what?
Pull warts.
Warts? Like
she could touch someone and they had just been burned. Like, they really were suffering and had just been burned, and she could touch them and pull the fire out.
Okay.
Pull the burning out.
Okay.
It sounds absolutely insane, but it worked. And it couldn't be anybody in the family though. It couldn't be blood related. And like if somebody was to have like a terrible thing with warts, she could tell them how to get rid of it. She could use herbs and create something like Sylvadine or golden seal.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, you would drink it and you'd be better.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty much taking everything that they've learned over many, many years and passed down and using herbs and using the land, and you could make these poultices or you could make these drinks. And I mean, it was literally just, it would work. I don't know why it would work. People thought it was magic. I have no idea. Like they could tell you stick a stick in the ground, walk away from it 4 feet and spin 3 times and your warts would be gone. And for some reason it would work. It was like, I don't think it was so much magic as it was maybe mind power. And then with the golden seal and stuff like that, it was definitely herbs.
Yeah, I remember my grandparents always had some, or my grandmother, she was 96 when she passed away. She was born in 1908.
Yeah.
And her grandmother was born in 40 something. I can't remember, but I guess she carried a gun on her side. My great grandmother, never met her, of course. But can you imagine that? I mean, it's 2025, right? My great grandmother, I'm old, but I'm not that old. My great grandmother lived in the 1800s.
Yep.
And carried a pistol on her side. Can you imagine that?
Oh,
and
yeah.
they had all these remedies, right? You talk about that, and all these different. And my grandmother, not my great grandmother, but my grandmother, used to talk about how all these remedies. Well, do this and do that, and put some oatmeal on it. If you got a bee sting, put some oatmeal on it. But we didn't believe in that. We never thought that was, no, they're just talking. But that's all they had back then, right? So, but it's kind of crazy.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy what you hear all that kind of stuff. But
I have legit seen it work, and I've just, as a child, I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Like that really worked, like how do you pull fire? Like there's got to be something. Like I'm looking for a medical diagnosis on how this is done. Like show me a dossier on the procedure, because I'm like, there's no way you can humanly just take the burn from someone, but she could do it. So
I worked in the restaurant business, and they always taught us a trick. Brian, you might know this too. If so, my dogs are snoring. Can you?
I hear it.
Hey. Okay. I always heard a trick that if you burn yourself, if you put your finger or something on metal, like cold metal or anything, steel, it draws the heat, which it does, right? So I mean, for that concept, that could work, right? Whatever, in some mystical way. I mean, if a piece of sheet metal can draw away heat from your finger, that if you burn your finger, why wouldn't something else like that work, right?
Exactly. And I always figured that this came into, I figured it kind of bled into the whole superstition thing. Like, my grandmother was very superstitious, and people, normal people, they look at me and they're like, what did you just do? And I'm like, you didn't see that, because it'll be something really crazy. Like, you throw the salt over your shoulder or something like that. Well, my grandmother was like, never give a stranger water from your home. And I was like, why is that? And she would tell me the stories of the witch in town, because they had stories of a witch, and this witch would go to your home, and she would be like, oh, I'm so thirsty. I'm parched. I need water. It's life or death. I need, just give me a glass. And my great grandmother, I can remember her telling me that her mother was like, get in the house. Do not give her anything. You get in the house. And my grandmother's like, oh my God, okay. So she runs in the house, and she's like, well, I was just going to get her. And my great grandmother was a stern woman. She was like, you will not. She's a witch. And if you give her a glass of water, she will have power over our family. And I was like, oh my God, but they truly believed that. My grandmother had a lot of tales. She talked about the little girl in white on the mountain, and she would walk to school and walk home from school. And this little girl was just kind of across, I guess, like a little holler. And she would walk the same path that my grandmother did, but like almost like a complete mirror. And then when she would get towards her house, the little girl would just be gone. And my grandmother was like, I was told never to chase the little girl. And she's like, I never questioned it. I just didn't do it. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, I figured that's a ghost, or I figured that's a witch. So I'm not really 100% sure on that. But she was big on the superstitions, and she would tell us about Mother Shipton's prophecy. And I don't know if that's something you've ever heard of or not.
No, go ahead and tell us about that.
So Mother Shipton, and it's a bit of a controversial thing because I've tried to talk to people about it, and some people believe she was a witch. Some people believe she, dealt in the black arts. I have no idea. I believe she was just an old woman who somehow got a prophecy. And I can't remember the entire thing because it's quite long, but it talks about, Mother Shipton talks about in the future, metal birds will fly and cars without horses will go. And she's literally talking about the entire future from the time she's alive way up into the 2000s. And she's describing things like planes and cars and war, and just it's absolutely mind blowing if you study up on it. But my grandmother was big on that. So it was just, like I say, I tell people I was raised different.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's kind of creepy in a way, a little bit.
Look it up. It is. It'll make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up because you're just like, wow, that really coincides with a lot.
Right. Well, I mean, we hear a lot of Bigfoot encounters, Dogman encounters, cryptid encounters, but I tell you, whenever I hear these stories that you're talking about, like tonight, the paranormal side, the ghost side, I get those chills. I get those chills in my arms, those goosebumps, and it always does affect me more than. And I don't consider myself that kind of guy, right? I'm not like a ghost hunter kind of person, but it's always good to hear those kind of things in a little bit, just get a different aspect of what's going on. Because I know that stuff goes on out there. I mean, I know that there's that kind of craziness, as Brian does too.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creature Show. If you're a fan of the show, go and check out our new Patreon site. You'll get access to our private Discord server, exclusive merchandise, access to all live streams and Q&As, discounts on merch from the Cryptid Creature store, and get a chance to be a guest host during one of the show's recordings. Just go to www.patreon.com/cryptidcreatures. Thank you for listening and supporting the show.
What else do you want to talk about? Anything else you want to discuss? What else have you heard about or anything else?
Well, where I live at now, I live in North Carolina. I don't know how much you know about North Carolina. I live sort of in the middle part, if you know where Charlotte and Salisbury is.
Yep.
Okay. So Salisbury is well known for Dogman. That's something that we've got in this area. I've had more paranormal experiences than I have dealing with like the cryptid side because I just don't go out looking for that stuff. Like I said, I was raised with that healthy respect. If you see it, no, you don't. You just keep on going. But I do know that Dogman's pretty relevant around Salisbury. Now, my cousin and his wife live outside of the Uwharrie Mountains, and my cousin's wife called me absolutely distraught one day, and she was like, "You're going to think I'm crazy." And I was like, "Well, you're definitely crazy, but go ahead. What's going on?" And she's like, "I just saw Bigfoot." And I'm like, "Okay, tell me more." And they live right outside the Uwharrie forest. It's very, very close. And they have this beautiful mansion. I mean, they have just the most beautiful house, and it is in the middle of nowhere. And they are up against the national forest there. And she said that she had got up early one morning to make the baby a bottle. She was in the kitchen, and she just happened to look up because she saw something out of the corner of her eye. And she said there was a bipedal, like 9 foot tall from what she could see. And he was just gliding through the meadow and just went right into the woods. And she is not the kind of, I mean, she's medical licensed. She is not the kind of person to make things up. She literally thought she was losing her mind. She said, you know, my husband's going to think I'm absolutely crazy. And I was like, whatever, he's crazy anyway. So she was like, I'm telling you, it was a Bigfoot. It 2 legs, it had arms, and she's describing everything. And I was like, it's okay. And I was like, are you afraid? And she's like, well, should I be? And I was like, no. I mean, if it's not, you know, if you're not seeing him around your house, and if he's just, you know, and she's like, well, he's maybe 100 yards from me. And I was like, well, you know, that sounds about right, because Uwharrie Forest out here, they've got like a Bigfoot thing going on. So, you know, we know there's absolutely Bigfoot stories here. So, there's definitely that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else over in that area. I know there's a place in Mount Ola that people don't venture to at dark because of Dogman. I have not seen it myself, and I don't really care to, but they're definitely aware that it exists there.
There's a lot of activity going on in that area for sure, right?
Oh yeah. It's pretty big around here. There's a few towns that are known for a lot of paranormal activity. Several there near the Uwharrie Mountains. Now there's a lot of haunted, I guess, quote unquote, haunted mines that are near the Uwharrie National Forest as well. They're right outside. There's a little place called El Dorado. It's a teeny tiny little town, and there are several mines there. I had one encounter out in that area when I was much younger, and it was with a group of friends. We were just kind of hanging out. They were, you know, having the bonfire, and one of them decided that they wanted to bring out their phone and try some ghost app. And I was like, dude, I'm out. And they were like, you know, what's going on? And then all of a sudden everything went quiet. And like, you could hear a pin drop. You couldn't hear crickets. You couldn't hear frogs. You couldn't hear anything. And I felt every hair on my body stand up. And I was like, nope, I'm out. I got my keys. I got out of there, because there was a mine that was probably within 1/4 of a mile of that area, because the name of the road is actually from that mine, and it had collapsed years and years and years ago. And there were a lot of deaths, and I don't play that. You know, we don't go around poking.
People talk about these things, and they're used to them, you know, like it's like the Woolyboogers and the Woolyboogers, and, you know, grandparents tell their grandkids, and, you know, don't go out at night, stay in the house, stay close by, don't go out in the mountains, don't go in the woods. Something's going on there, right? For sure.
Yeah, and you definitely gave us some more stuff to dive into and research.
It is definitely a rabbit hole.
For sure. We want to thank you again, Jane, for being on with us tonight. We appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys letting me come on here and share some of my childhood with you.
No problem.
It was our pleasure.
Yeah. You keep your eyes and ears open. If anything else goes on, you hear something or see something, let us know.
Yeah, definitely let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you. All right. Well, take care. Have a good night.
Jane.
You too.
All right, cool. Having Jane on the show. A lot of weird stuff going on there in her area, you know? I mean, little people and Woolyboogers.
Whatever else she's talking about. Bony head or whatever that was.
Yeah, craziness. We've heard of Woodboogers, right? But not Woolyboogers. It's just
not woolly.
Same thing,
crazy.
though. Got to be the same thing.
I would think so.
I mean, we know there's 100 names for Bigfoot, right?
Yep.
Depends on what people want to call them. So.
Yep.
Anyway, it's great having her on and talking about that. Next,
Yeah, it was. That was fun.
we're going to bring on our next guest, Sydney. See what
Sydney,
she's
the Indiana
experienced
girl.
down there in Indiana. Yeah, just south of us, not too, like an hour and 40 minutes, if that. So,
Yeah, not far.
all right, are you ready to bring Sydney on?
Yep, let's get her.
Hi.
Hi, Sydney. How are you?
Hey, Sydney, thanks for being here with us tonight.
Of course.
We appreciate it very much. I know we were talking on social media, and you had some Bigfoot experiences, and you're actually in Indiana, where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Not too far away, actually. You're kind of down, you're north of Indianapolis for sure. And we know that there's a lot of activity going on in that kind of area. So can you tell us, like, when this all started?
It all started when we moved in here. Not a few years later, down the road, it started happening, and I didn't know what to expect at first. I just thought it was like my imagination, my uncle telling me stories and all this stuff, because he's Cherokee and I'm Cherokee too, so it's like I'm like, oh, so there's this Bigfoot thing. Okay, what is it? So I look up information about it. And then when I turned 16, I went down to the pond and I'm like, okay, something's been down there, I can tell. So I went down there and there was this footprint that was bigger than mine, bigger than my dad. So I was like, oh, okay. I took a picture of it, and my dad's like, that's not human. I'm like, yeah, it's not human at all. There's been screams, there's been tree knocks, there's been eye shine. They bring me dead antlers and dead deer legs.
Do you keep going out and looking for them, or
Yeah,
do you think maybe you're going to see one at some point?
hopefully. Keep finding footprints in the snow, and then I find a nest down by the pond. Because I know they like to peek through people's windows. Because I seen the eyes before looking through the windows. So.
Oh, you have seen the eyes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what color they were?
One was red. The other one was like a really deepish, greenish color.
Has anyone in your family seen a Bigfoot down in that area, or your uncle or anybody?
Yeah, my dad has.
Okay. Can you tell us
He's
about that?
So we were coming out the door, and it was the day before 4th of July in 2017, and we were, going down to the pond to see if we could catch any catfish. My dad stopped in the middle of walking, but I was like, we need to go back up to the house now. He's like, don't look back there. He's seen green eyes, and then he's seen a taller thing with green eyes, and then he's seen a baby. Because one of them had a baby, and I guess the baby was on the back or hiding behind the other one, because it was the same height as me. So we have this spirit that comes through our land, and she's a little native Cherokee girl, because she apparently died somewhere on a property, I guess, and I see her a lot. So has my dad, but my mom experienced tree knocks, and that's it. But other than that, I'm connected to them.
Yeah, well, you sent us the picture of the footprint that you saw when you were 16.
And then there was one in the cornfield. Now that one was bad because it would try to speak to me.
Was it mind speaking to you?
Yeah. If I moved or tried to scream, I couldn't scream. Like I was froze. I couldn't move. I was terrified.
What happened after that?
I went inside. My dad went out to the cornfield to check everything out, and he said that half of the corn was laid down. It looked like an animal was resting in there. And then he said that he got a scent of human pee, like a human pee. I'm like, that is weird.
What's your thoughts about Bigfoot?
I know they're here, and I know they're real, and I'm not scared of them.
Do you think that they are here all the time? Do you think that they come in and out of portals? Do you think there's some mystical stuff going on, some supernatural stuff going on?
I think there's a mix between all that, because I seen a UFO the night before. I saw the footprints, and it was like a big orange light. My uncle saw it up the road from us, and then I seen it the next day, and that's when I found the footprints the next day.
Oh, so you saw you saw a UFO. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, I've heard all these correlations between UFOs and Bigfoots, like they're dropping them off or picking them up. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I'm not really for sure. I know that they don't. I know that they don't stay here during the wintertime.
That's the weird thing. People don't see them in the wintertime, even in Oregon and in the states out there that have them a lot in those areas. It's like they hibernate or they go somewhere, or maybe they're just not here.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if they don't come and go out of portals or something like that. And I don't know. It's just so crazy. Why would a Bigfoot be in your area of Indiana, of all places, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I was a Bigfoot, I would be.
I'd be in Oregon.
Yeah, definitely be in Oregon.
Yeah, I was out
I'm not
in Seattle.
a Bigfoot and I want to go to Oregon, so.
Definitely wouldn't be in Indiana.
I've been out to see Seattle a lot, and there was Bigfoot shops everywhere, and I got like a bunch of stickers and.
Okay.
It was cool.
Yeah. So you collect Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. So do we.
Do you go to a lot of different Bigfoot shows?
Yeah, I went to one last year at South Whitley. Leroy Roy, that's his name. He's from Indiana, and he came up here with his wife, and then I was on another broadcast in Peru.
Was it Brandon from Tinfoil Tales?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we know Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon's a good friend of ours. Cool.
Yeah, he's nice.
Yeah, he's a good guy. You don't live too far away from him. Mm-mm. He's actually doing a documentary about, he's calling it, like, I think, the Mississinawa Triangle.
Oh, yeah, I heard about.
Is that the Mississinawa River or something like that? Where you're
Yes. Something like that, yeah.
There's that area down south of you, but then where you're at, when you told me where you live, I looked it on the map, and then you've got a lot of wooded and waterways around your area too, which makes a lot of sense why these creatures could be hanging out there.
Mm-hmm. It's weird though, because like, I don't know, I didn't believe this stuff when I was really little, but now I do, and I'm like, this is crazy.
What do you think about Dogman? Is Dogman down in that area too, or?
My dad says it is. He heard like these, so it sounded like a dog, but it wasn't a dog because it had like a deep like crying howl. And we have a we live close to Beaver Dam Lake and Yellow Creek Lake, and my grandma said that the Yellow Creek Native Indians were around this area too. But I would hear like a deep howl like in the wintertime. I haven't heard it since like 2 years ago, but it didn't sound like a dog or a coyote or a wolf.
Okay, gotcha. I've been down that area so many times. Silver Lake and all that stuff. You've got that wooded area with what is that river there? Is that a creek or a river? I can't tell. It doesn't say. Silver Creek.
Yeah.
That runs through there with a lot of wooded areas. So, but those waterways drift down, and there's trees and wooded area down toward Peru, where the Wabash River and all that stuff is, Mississinawa Lake, and then they talk about the Mississinawa Triangle, which our friend Brandon that you were on is going to be doing a show about. So that's really cool. So weird. The correlation, the correlation of the area is what's interesting to us.
I went to a state park down there, and it was me and my boyfriend at the time, and he seen weird like formations of like rocks stacked on each other, and it was one of the rivers. It was one of the state parks down there. I think it was Mississinawa. Yeah.
So where do you think these things go in the wintertime?
I think they go to like caves or a den somewhere.
Deep down, I think that too. Either they're interdimensional, right, or they go in these caves and somehow stay warm. Yeah. Some way or another. So.
Well, most caves are, constant temperature all year round of like 60-something degrees. Or
are
whatever.
they? Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. Which is weird. You'd think they'd be freezing cold, but. What else you want to talk about, Sydney?
I think I might have seen a skinwalker once.
Okay.
I don't remember when, but I think I was around 15 or 14 when it happened. I was in the boat with my dad fishing here at our pond, and I seen like this weird like thing walking, and it looked like a dog, but then it got up on its two legs and it started walking. And, like, I about jumped out of the canoe and ran up to the house, but my dad told me not to move. And this thing was scary looking. And then my mom seen a wolf. There hadn't been any wolves around here, and my mom seen a wolf, and she heard it screaming. And then my dad heard like a howl, and then like a person screaming. So I think there's skinwalkers around here too. I'm not for sure, but I think I might have saw one when I was little, but I don't remember it.
I don't think those are skinwalkers. I think those are dogmen, is what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Because Brandon saw one down there too. I mean, I think they're, for whatever reason, in that area. You said they're scary and walking on two legs, look like a dog, like a wolf. I mean, that's a dog man. What color was it? Do you remember?
What it
It
sounds
was
like.
black, and it had red eyes.
Black and red eyes. Okay.
Yeah.
And it had I could hear it crunching on bones.
Like chewing on something, or just
Yeah, chewing on something. And then I remember seeing it. It had like a deer in its mouth or something. I think it had a deer in its mouth.
a deer?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how tall you think it was, or?
Probably maybe 9 foot tall
Okay.
and hairy.
Yeah, that might have been a dog man, honestly. Well, you got to be safe when you're out there looking around. Do you go out hiking at all in those areas?
Yeah, I go hike. Let's see. I went out the other day because I felt there was a skunk that I wanted to see where it went, and I went down to the pond and I had a weird feeling, so I just came back up.
Do your animals ever act weird and stuff?
Oh yeah. Let's see. Was it the day before? Yeah, the day before yesterday, something was in our barn making like a weird noise, and my dogs were scared of it, and my dad got scared, so he came back in. So we might have had something something in our barn.
Oh, wow. Did you say you guys are on a good sized area of property?
Yeah, we have like 6 acres.
Okay. Well, it's big enough. All it takes is some woods to be around your house that's connected to other woods, right?
Yep, we have a woods across the cornfield, then we have a woods behind us, and then we have kind of a woods in front of us, but the backwoods we can't go into because our neighbors won't allow us in there. And I heard banging on metal in that woods.
Oh, you have?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I have a recording of sounded like a cow, but it wasn't a cow.
Was it something trying to mimic a cow?
Yeah.
So what else, Sydney? What else you want to talk about?
I seen a lot of ghosts. I seen a headless one. That's also the night I seen that dog man. It happened on the same night, and it was around 9 o'clock. I was looking at my mailbox because I thought I saw something, and there was like this human thing standing there with the hood on. I didn't see the legs or the arms. I just seen the hood, the outline of a ghost.
Kind of like a Grim Reaper or something like that, or what?
Yeah.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah. And then we have that native girl. She likes to come in our house a lot, and she moves things. And my dad saw her in the hallway. She had wet hair, and her hair was black, and it was wet.
You guys are down around some Indian burial grounds or something going on down there, I believe.
Yeah, that's what we think our house is on.
Oh, okay.
That would explain a lot.
You talk about the American heritage, and the Native Americans were here when the white man and the Europeans came over and did what they did, unfortunately. But you talk about the Native Americans. They lived in those areas. They lived by rivers, and they lived in wooded areas, right? And they actually, as far as we know, they interacted with the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, right?
We found a big spearhead in the cornfield, and like a bull type of thing in the cornfield. We found it. It got digged up when they were playing the corn one year.
Really?
I found a sharp big arrowhead, and then my dad found like this game thing that they would play with. The deer would chew it up, and then I think the natives would, like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like a hard concrete ball type of thing, and it's small. It looks like, I don't know, but I don't think my dad has it anymore, but it was all black, and the deer, I don't know. He said something about the deer would grind it up. I don't know. Yep.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, like, they talk about the Bigfoot being Indian friends, and then the Indians and the burial grounds and the skinwalker thing and the whole Indians. It's almost weird, like they're coming back, those spirits are coming back as these maybe dogman creatures or something. And
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's actually possible because, like, how would I explain, like, the Bigfoot activity here and the native girl and the Bigfoot and the dogman and all that type of stuff? It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Something's going on for sure, right? I mean,
I'm having some people coming down this summer. If you guys want to come down and look, you guys are more than welcome to.
okay. We're at, like, on your property, you mean? Or
Yeah.
okay. Well, we might do that. Is Brandon coming down too? Is he hanging out with you?
I don't know. I'll have to contact him and see if he will come down.
Okay. Yeah. We could hang out and talk about everything and check out some stuff. Maybe do some videos or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say thanks for having me on here, and I will send you that recording.
Thank you, Sydney. Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Yeah,
We
thanks for
appreciate
coming on. Appreciate it.
Yep. Bye.
it. Okay, see ya.
Let us
Yeah.
know if you see anything else.
Yes.
I will.
All right, Sydney.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
All right, man. That was awesome having both the guests on, Jane and Sydney. They had great stuff going on there.
Yeah, it was. We definitely got to get down to that area of Indiana and do some poking around.
I know. I was kind of hoping that we could be on that documentary, but Brandon never asked us to, so we'll have to
I know.
blow some shit about that for sure.
Jerk.
We could have just come down there and just been some content for him.
Yeah.
Brandon,
Yeah,
if you're listening, Tinfoil Tales,
could have just fit us in.
help some brothers out. We'll help you out. So anyway, but no,
Sure.
yeah, it was great having them on and talking to them. And
That was fun.
one thing I've realized since we started this, Indiana's got way more stuff going on than I ever thought.
More than I ever thought.
That whole north of Indianapolis, south of Indianapolis, and other stuff going on. People don't realize
Yep.
how much stuff goes on in this state, and I'm amazed that we live in this state and that stuff's happening. So, kind of makes me interested and then wants me to keep me checking stuff out here around home. So,
Yeah.
all right, man. Awesome hanging out with you, brother, as always.
Oh, yeah, man. Always fun. Always learning.
All right, what do you say we take off?
Yep. See ya.